Tēnā koutou e are taringa mai nei ki tēnei o ngā hōtaka o Koniahi Kōrero, o tira ki koutou rā e mātakitaki mai nei I tēnei pāpā o mata ora ki runga I a pukamata, tērā pēr kua hono mai hoki I a YouTube, kei te mei kauatu ki koutou katoa I tēnei rā, ana koutou rā e mātakitaki mai ana kei te kite kē koutou, ko wai kei taku taa, nā ko Marie Gregory Hunt tēnei, taku tētahi o oku nei tino hoa, nōku te maringa nui, kua tai mai ia ki tō tātou nei taa I tēnei rā. Kia ora mai mate. How are you going out there? Ka tuku te rākau ki koe, Marie, ki te whakamoho atu ki te marea. Ko wai koe, no wai, no hea, aua āhuatanga katoa. I'm going to hand it over to you now, Marie, to explain or let everybody know who you are and where you're from and all of those wonderful things.
Atu Marie hoa, ko wai au, he moko puna au o te maunga o Taranaki. Ai, ko ngā anga Ngāti Tairanga iwi, kei konei au. I am born and raised in the Chatham Islands, or Rangi Pitt Island, and I whakapapa here to Taranaki, and I've been living here for about 17 years, pia. And in lockdown in Waitara. Ai.
Lockdown in Waitara. So, Kare, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We've had a few attempts to get online and get this done, but you're a busy wahine. So very grateful for this morning, that you're joining us this morning, and some of the reasons as to why it's taken us a little while to get this interview underway. Very interesting. I mean, we're going to come back to the Bug Hotel, Kare. We are going to come back to the Bug Hotel because I think right now, actually, in lockdown, that is an awesome thing for people to be doing in their backyard. Okay, those of you who are listening will be like, what are you talking about, Te Aorangi? Don't worry about it, we're going to get there. But Kare, you talked about being raised in the Chatham Islands. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right, so I am one of 11 kids. I'm number 8. And we grew up in the middle of the island, and I talk about this quite a bit, about the difference on a very small island, whether you grew up in and around by the bush or down by the moana. So we were bush kids. There were, always us, a couple of cousins around, and we spent most of our days just down in the ngāere below mum and dad's, and that was our playground. Can't swim. Grew up on an island. We weren't the moana kids. So yeah, that was probably the foundation of my love and passion for the taiao, was just that was our playground.
So you can't swim, Kare?
No, I can't swim.
But isn't that an interesting point? Right, that's an interesting point, that if you were the kids who were brought up around the moana, then that was going to be your skill set. And if you were the kids who were brought up in the ngahere, then you were going to have a different skill set. But collectively, is this right when I say this? Collectively, you were all caring for the motu in your way. So what did that look like? What was the collective spirit like, Meki?
Still, I would say probably growing up, there were, like, Dad was on the whenua, so Christmas time would come and you would share out your kai. So, for example, if someone went out pig hunting, they would chop up that pig and give it to everyone. But then at the same time, if the people were going out fishing leading up to Christmas, they would bring in koura and share that out. So, and then actually now looking at some of the young men from home, a lot of the ones that were sons of the moana are now the fishermen, and there's a lot of us that are in the taiao space, because it was just natural that's where we ended up. And that's probably or big in the marakai maybe, or passionate about the whenua in some way. And for me, mine is just the ngā ere, and rāua that came from moving here to Taranaki and meeting Pa, but Pa Ropata was probably my mentor, the late Mahinu Grandfather, definitely, another whanonga ki Warekauri. But yeah, that was probably, the seed was planted as a small kid.
Right. And so the seed was planted, and how does it look now that it is blossomed?
It looks like someone with a big wa. I think now it's like I've probably been blessed to have had the last 12 months in the ngā ere on the kaitiaki with Taranaki Maunga project. It's been the latest probably part to my love and passion of the ngā ere, and then really probably narrowing down what it is that I see as important for us as Te Ao Māori to really look at as to what are the really core areas of how we can reconnect. What I teach 5 years ago has definitely changed a lot now. How I see the taiao, how I see the ngā ere is really, has evolved being up in the bush. What I hear, what I see is important, and it's probably mostly about people being connected. And being connected isn't necessarily about learning medicinal properties of plants, but it's about taking the time to go and be in the ngā ere. Yeah.
And have you? So you and I have spoken before about the young rangatahi who you've been supporting up on the maunga, and how some of them now can easily identify seeds and other rākau, other tipu that they didn't know from the beginning. So you've spoken about the fact that they can do that now, and not necessarily coming from backgrounds where that would have been in their daily mahi. So it's something we can all do, yeah?
Oh, hard out. And I think it's accidental. It's not like we're out there, we might be going out there to check a possum line, but it's what you observe by being in the ngā ere. So it's not something that you have to purposefully go out there. When you're taking your tamariki out in the ngā, just you're going out for a little hikoi and a picnic lunch. You don't have to purposely go out there to teach them something like that. We grew up on the island. We were building huts in the bush. We weren't going out to sit and observe the ngā ere per se. We were just being there, and it's the same as the rangatahi out doing possum lines. You start to notice things that you wouldn't notice if you're sitting at home on the couch, or like obviously different seasons, the smells in the ngā ere are different. So there might be flowers or things that are falling on the ground after a big wind. You'll start to see certain kakanu, or you'll see pua wānanga will be soon. We'll start to see that lying on the ground on the tracks, or so those observations happen quite accidentally, we could say. Yeah.
Right. So can you hear that feedback?
Can't.
Sorry, whānau. For those of you who are watching, I just want to make sure this sound is good for you all. Anywho, ka haere tonu ngā kōrero. So just thinking about your mahi within te taiao, and seeing you get into your study as well. Do you think there is a good... that's an option for our rangatahi these days, is to get some experience out in the bush and then marry it up with the what will we call it, with te rataha mātauranga, I guess, through wānanga, through those types of wānanga?
Definitely. And I think the bonus to that, or just the sense in it, is that there's so much happening in our taiao space, but it's really good to have a foundation to understand the taiao yourself, because when you come up against councils and basically just any sort of legislation that speaks to the taiao, then you're trusting the other side of the coin's knowledge on it, and really we're not speaking into those spaces from our own hands-on experience, so we're believing what's coming to us. Whereas if you go out there and we talk about this a lot, T, about Tonga Species is just one of my little areas that so we get told, that go out and choose, you get an ecology report and you say, okay, can you please let us know your Tonga species, because we don't want to cut a road through here, and damage these. We're going to go around it and provide mitigation. And so therefore, when we see these catchphrases, I guess, I don't know what else you want to call it, and it sounds good, but actually what it does is it forces us to choose, and that's not how we see the ngāere. We see it all as one entirety, all has importance at a different time, a different season. So therefore, asking tangata whenua to choose Tonga Species is like asking me to tell you which one of your kids is the most important to you today. With preteens, it might be a bit easy today to choose which one. But, 10 years' time might not be the same choice. In all seriousness, we can't do that, right? We can't say that a tōtara is more important than a karamu, and a karamu is more important than a matipo. So, but because we don't necessarily have that relationship, because we've lost that relationship, we think we're hearing a good thing. So it's really important to have your own relationship with the ngāere, and then coupled with that, education, dare I say, or that Pākehā tohu or whatever, it helps, it's a more powerful argument when it comes to speaking into those spaces. And, mātauranga Māori as science is very relevant, and we have to push that and then be also really confident in our knowledge instead of being a bit shaky about it and being talked out of it. That's probably what I think is really important, is that we don't trust ourselves with that knowledge. Because it might be a little bit shaky, and it might be the relationship might be not so strong because we're not going into these places. So, go to these places, reconnect, that maramatanga will come, what's important when, because of we having that relationship, and then we've got the power to pack a punch when it comes to a consent or something like that.
Picking up on the consent kōrero, that seems to be, it's upsetting in a sense to feel like when you're at a hapū level that is what defines your space within te taiao, in a sense that you're at a place where you're just always answering these resource consents. And you and I have spoken about this on many occasions, that we should actually already be at the table before the resource consent even gets to us, to a point where everybody who is within our rohe understands what our stance on things already are, what our vision or what our vision is, what our practice is already, and how those practices out there actually need to come back and align with what we already know, so that the whakaaro that we already have, as you say, it's not shaky, it's actually experience.
Right. It's solid. Yeah.
We're not making it up.
And that's it. And I think too, like we've talked about this, T, about the significance of the natural world, the taiao today, opposed to it just being wā i tapu, like drawing a ring fence around things and saying that's important to Māori because this happened 200 years ago, and so that's the only place where we are relevant, or is relevant to us. We need to be in that space so that it is still relevant to us today. It's not just a place where something happened a long time ago, but actually it's still part of our everyday life. It's who we are. And that's what I think to me, councils have taken advantage of us in that respect, that you go into the kaitiaki, you can draw a ring around events that took place in time, and that's the only place where we get to speak to. We're actually, for me, the whole of that space is where we're relevant, because it's part of who we are. It brings us sustenance, be it walking in the ngā ere is a form of rongoa for me. You know, I don't have to harvest to be connecting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another key point too, I guess, is that we have this real ideal. It's almost like a romance, in a sense, that, you know, we're going to walk out there and we're just going to harvest, because we're going to come back and we're going to make this beautiful rongoa that we know all of the properties for exactly what that specific tree is for, and my tamariki are going to know. And when someone says, what are the medicinal properties and scientific da-da-das for the kawakawa, and they're going to be able to rattle it off. And like, if you asked me that, well, you know me with my journey in rongoa, it's really been pretty short, and it's been very focused on what can it do for me, how do I feel about it, I guess. But you can get ring fenced, like you say, into feeling like that's actually not enough. You basically need to be the pharmacist within. And yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Can you just expand a little bit further?
That's perfect, because that's exactly where now I'm hesitant when I'm hesitant at the moment about teaching medicinal properties of plants in the for rongoa kōrero, because I feel like that again is another one of those traps of Tonga Species, where we have to prove our relationship with the ngā ere, and it has to have a use. It should be about rather than what can the ngā ere do for me, what can I do for the ngā ere? And that's different. That's not a taking relationship, that's a giving. And so I think the giving from us could be just that we go there and we have an awareness about what's happening in that ngā ere. And it might be, like, I think we've talked a lot, Kari. We've talked about this about like the Cody dieback, that someone had to have a relationship with those spaces in order for them to see that something was wrong. And so,
yes,
you know, for us to go into the ngā ere, be it on the maunga, but probably not so much for us, you know, the lower valleys of the maunga here. But in order, say, you know, there's something going on up there with the pukatea, how would we know that if we're not going there? Another thing is just the knowledge that comes from knowing where things grow, you know, so you can see what suits. You know, we're doing a lot of reconstruction of our whenua, a lot of riparian planting, but how do we know where things grow if the land is basically denuded of everything and we just have a blank paddock? How do we know what needs to go back there? Oh, because we have to go to the council and trust their science. We need to go back into the ngā ere, see where the ngā ere likes to grow, the certain rākau. That's when we have mana motuhaki over our areas. When we're putting those things back, it's based on our knowledge and our relationship. Pukatea likes the water, likes the wet areas. You know, you're going to find taua up on the ridges. You're going to find pātete down in the swamp. So that knowledge comes from spending time in the ngā ere, and that's what our rangatahi can do. You don't need an ecologist to write your planting plan. We're the ecologists, but we've got to back ourselves. And so that's a different kind of relationship. Yes, we're taking that knowledge, but, you know, Pa used to say, the ngā ere speaks to those who listen, and if you listen long enough, you'll hear. And I think that's what, for me, being in the kaitiaki for a year was just listening, observing. Oh yeah, okay. There was a really noticeable lack of small taua coming through. And even though we're smashing the possums up there, there's a big rat problem, and so the taua berries are juicy, and they just get smashed by the rats when they fall. And so whereas a pukatia, heaps of those, because the seed is like a dandelion. It's a wind pollinated, so it's a little furry thing. So they had no problem with rats eating those. So it's just that's kaitiakitanga to me, making those observations, seeing, okay, we're going to have to step in here, what can we do? Maybe this is a kakano we need to be picking up and germinating, because until we get on top of the rats. It's that sort of, those observations that we can make when we have a relationship with the whenua, instead of waiting for science.
Yeah.
Waiting.
Yeah.
That is science. It's just our science. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of kōrero going around at the moment about what's about science versus mātauranga Māori, and I guess for me it's the same sort of kōrero as what's a site of significance. Like, why are we getting ourselves caught up in these conversations? We know what sells, we know what's proven to have worked. Nothing is more important than the other, I guess, in Te Ao Māori, because it's all should be intrinsically working together. And I see a place for science in a sense too. That interests me, but it's not my everyday practice, I guess. It in their view of what science is, isn't necessarily my everyday practice. I'm more comfortable in the Te Ao Māori space. So, like the sites of significance and the Tonga species, why do you think we're getting, I understand there's probably a need to have that kōrero, but why do you think we get so caught up in it?
I just think we still have, I won't get myself in trouble, I only put my name as Marie, just so the hate mail can go to you.
Bring it.
Is that I feel like we get suckered in still. We have this belief that even though I feel like we have to compete with that kind of those knowledge systems, and it's like, we have to have the same tohu to be on the same level, and it's like, actually, even though we talk a big game, actually I don't know if we do back ourselves, because we're still asking for that same Western knowledge to come and back us, instead of just being comfortable that our way is okay. And to me, that's the part, like if you go and speak to a submission and you have to have an expert, well, we should be challenging that. Why can't we be our own experts? Like, I find that insulting. The same as someone coming and saying, oh, can you please tell me your Tonga species? It's like, Carl, they're all Tonga to me. I have a relationship with all that part of the ngāere at different times of the year. It doesn't make sense. So, because our knowledge comes from, it doesn't come from a leaf being put under a magnifying glass in a lab to see things or whatever, that the knowledge comes differently. Like medicinal properties, people ask me, oh, what is the medicine in this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then they're like, oh, well, then how do you know it works? This is because of the whakapapa. Like, people, you can see, well, these rākau whakapapa here, they grow here. And then later on, there's books that say, in pukatia, there's pukatine and it works as a painkiller because it's got lists or breaks it down. Our people already knew that. Their knowledge was just derived from noticing where it grew and what it liked. Like, it's the same thing. We just arrived at the same point via two different roads. It's still science. It's just two different ways of getting to the same point.
And I guess science must come from experience too. Someone had to give it a go,
Yeah, exactly. And then watching the manu or just the observations for us would have been a lot, it's just another way of doing it. I feel like we get trapped into those kupu mean something to us, where why don't we just change the language, and then we're not in the same battle.
Yeah.
Like, if someone said to me what I'm Tonga species, I would like to change that. I would like to change that language, because it sounds good for us because it has a kupu Māori, so it must be good. No.
Yeah.
That's asking us to choose. And sometimes that's about funding, and that's something else. Is like, we see certain manu get chosen for translocations, or a lot of funding goes into certain manu, and then you're hearing other things that are in danger, and it's like, oh, well, what's that about? And it's like, because there's a funding pool and there's only so much money to fund certain species. So it's like something, and then, then it becomes someone's pet thing. So that's how we just have to think a little bit about how we see the world and trust it that way. I'll give was kīreru. So kīreru aren't endangered. We don't have a problem with running out of kīreru anytime soon. But when you think about them for us, as far as kai goes, there's a really great kai. Also, they can swallow the karaka seed, the miro, taraire, but we don't have other big manu to do that anymore. The kīreru's the only one. So if we lost the kīreru, we would also lose its ability to spread that seed beyond just the drop of the tree. So in a sense, it might not be a Tonga species in 2021, but in 2081, if we didn't have it, there would be this ongoing effect. And so I think that's the other thing for us as Māori, is we think beyond our lifetime, whereas consents and things like that, and funding and governments, and they're not thinking about the future of these species that they're calling Tonga species. They're only, or not calling Tonga species. So there's that too for us.
Yeah, what do you think? I just picked up on something you said then, when they're asking us what's our Tonga species, and we might feel like, oh, ka pai, there's the word Tonga. You're right, it is a Tonga to us. But why are they asking us? This is what gets me, because I've sat in hui before where you can almost feel people like, oh my gosh, I don't know what the Tonga species is. Like, what? I should know what the Tonga species is. And I'm like, isn't everything a Tonga? Just thinking really pragmatically, and like, why would I know exactly what Tonga species you're even talking about? Like, I never heard my parents talk about something being more than the other.
And so,
you know what I mean?
And that's why I feel like we've been suckered into that, because it's saying that the classification of its state and ecology is what makes it a Tonga. And then, so for example, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like a kiwi, I don't know, or a long-tailed bat, or a rākau, a rimu that is 1,000 years old in a bush might be, but a pukatea that's really like I don't know, 80 years old isn't. But yet, so basically, there's classifications based on whoever decided they are, ecology, New Zealand or something like that. So someone, and then supposedly fed in by hapū and iwi, I don't know, possibly. And so therefore they are called Tonga species, but everyone, like you say, so I mean, for me, karamu is a Tonga species to me, in the respect that I use it as one of the main rāua I use. So you can't, but then if you said to me, oh, you get to choose out a 1,000-year-old tōtara or a karamu, well, it's like, well, I don't use a tōtara for rongoa, but rangi, he might say to me, I don't use karamu, but that tōtara's worth. So It's everyone's, and that's the bit that I feel like we should be, when you get put in that position, challenge it. That's, to me, is like, we have to trust ourselves, like exactly what you're saying, when you're sitting there saying, oh, that doesn't make sense to me. That's where we need to actually go, just because it's called Tonga species and it sounds like it's our idea, for us in Ngāti Haua, actually this doesn't fit with us. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, is it might fit for other iwi around the motu, but it might not fit for yours because you might not see it that way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with us challenging those things. I encourage it. Because you have to think yourself, because actually at the end of the day, it's on us. Aren't we meant to be the kaitiaki of these places? And so are we going to make a decision that doesn't sit right in our puku because someone else said it was a Tonga species, or someone said you can only choose 3, or, that's where I think, where we have to trust ourselves that what we know, and then it's okay to not know too, it's actually okay not to know. It's okay to be on the journey, and it's okay to go, actually, nah, doesn't sit right with me. I want to go and get that clarification elsewhere. It might be, I don't know, I'd go see Uncle Sid. What was you?
Exactly. I mean, when you talk about something like that too, I got in touch with you. This is all over FaceTime too, e te whanau, or we're in lockdown, so it's starting to click really heavily with me now. These look at what's around you. So we down to our Kodi plantation. We're going to down at Ahikuku a couple of weeks ago for our wānanga, and you came along and instantly spotted what we could do in regards to companion planting. That's what it's called, right? Which just took a whole heap of pressure off us trying to think about how we're going to source all of these companion plants, because they're actually right there. And that's what comes of having a relationship with where you're living. Now, when we planted those Kodi trees that we see as an absolute taonga, we are doing our bit in the oranga tonutanga of the Kodi that typically does. It's not a tree that is where the whakapapa comes back to this part of Taranaki anyway, but receiving those as koha, wanting to do the best thing that we can do, understanding why Ngāti Wai did give us that koha and our responsibility to that. And then in the lead up to planting them, getting lots and lots of advice, at the same time not necessarily backing ourselves from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we were coming from a place of, we really want to get this right. Like, we really want to do the right thing. Then having to realize that actually the north, their environment is completely different to ours, So how they do things up there is going to be completely different to how we do things down here. So the encouragement, like you say, is always about your natural environment, and coming to the realization that, well, I can pretty much source all of those seedlings from my backyard, like my own backyard.
Right. And that's a lot of it. Like we said, kind of was that trust, and it's funny because what you have down there is a lot of karo, which is, and taupata, which is very coastal. But it's funny because people rubbish karo and taupata because it's really common in coastal areas. And where do we live? We live in coastal areas, and so people see it a lot. But I can tell you are not going to find karo up the maunga. So is karo a Tonga species? Hell yeah, because you can't grow it. We're not going to be growing horopito or raureko or taua right on that environment where you guys are planted. So in that situation, they aren't Tonga. But what is a karo and a taupata, which is, like people see as weed, but it's going to do exactly what you need it to do, which is be that protected to your Kodi, your Kodi plantation. That's the other thing I love is that that hononga you've got to your is it Ngāti Wai?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that planting something that tells a story. There's a whole whakapapa to that, and so karakas like that in Rekohu, Wairikodi, and in places everywhere where karaka was taken as a is a kai source, so it might not naturally have been there on its own, but it speaks of resilience and sustenance and all of those things that are, and forward thinking, because you know you're going to take this karaka seed and you're going to plant it. It's not you that's going to be eating that karaka, it's your mokopuna. And so that's a gift in itself, you know. We don't think about that side of it. You know, your Kōrero trees, you're not going to be necessarily the one putting your arms around it, are you? But it's a gift that you're forward thinking into the future. And I think that's the beautiful thing about that, is that is the giving. That's not the taking part of the relationship, you know.
No, it's good, because I think, you know, I don't want to sound offensive or anything of the sort, but I feel like sometimes we get caught up in what's going to be cool, you know. I feel like we're still in this kind of a phase where we're moving ahead in strides with some things, but we still get caught up in a hype of sorts, and because we actually do have our own experts, we do have that mata ura concept, or not concept, that those mata ura within ourselves, but we can still so easily get flipped and think, oh no, we must get this and we must get that, and we need a myriad of different companion plants, when really, no, we don't.
No, that's use what, yeah. And I like what you said about getting caught up in those trends, because that's exactly what happens. And then we're in this time issue of, oh, we've got to do it now, It's actually, that's where the maramatanga comes from, is that spending that time and learning, and that from our mistakes of planning stuff and realizing, oh, that didn't work, we need, oh, how about we try this, and then people noticing, you know, something changing or working, and so then adapting it. And that's what we get to do, that when we take our time and we're not forced by that trend of, oh, everyone's doing it like this, we better do it like that because that's what's working there or whatever. So it's kind of, yeah, have to kind of just trust that what you're doing is cool. Some things might not work, but that's part of it. That's part of the learning. And it might be just a season why it didn't work. It might be that frosts came early, or, you know, drought came early, or rainfall was too heavy. And that's part of that relationship with the whenua, is that it's forever changing, you know, not stuck in time.
Yeah. I get that. I think we often fall into a trap of being rushed, and sometimes it is because of funding. But, you know, after we had our conversation about what's actually in, like, literally, whānau, when I'm talking about what's in my backyard, I literally mean like what I'm looking at right now, as the little tipu that are growing under the trees that are all stacked around here. So it's that simple. So then we're not time pressured, because I can see it right there. Like, I literally do not have to order them from anywhere. I don't have to go to a nursery. I've easily got 155, probably 200, 300 tipu up. I mean, obviously, I'm in a better than others, that I can just walk into my backyard and do it. But it would only take someone, you know, a trip to somewhere out here even, to find that themselves. But we always seem to be quite just time. It's like, no, we've got to get them in now. Because I'm not going to lie, that's how we felt. We felt at the time when we planted them, like, oh my gosh, we do not have all of these companion plants. What are we gonna do? You know, and then the realization, once we actually talked to you all, the locals, was that we don't even need to do that right now. But it's an experience that we've had that informs our practice for the future, right?
Aye, and that's what it should be, eh? Like, I think our people came here as navigators. They must have been prepared to give shit a crack, you know, like actually have a go, like, oh, that tastes gross, oh, that's a crap place to live, because when the winter came around, this was happening. Like, why are we still not living like that, having a go? Like, why do we feel like we're not Maori enough if we don't know, or something, or we're not in touch enough if we don't? And it's like, that's where, to provide those opportunities for our rangatahi to be continually learning, opposed to, and our environment's changing with climate change. We've got, well, we're in a pandemic, that's new, you know, we're all a new type of way of life. The pests we're dealing with are new. So let's keep growing and changing, instead of thinking that, I don't know, at some point in time, our tupuna's knowledge was enough from there and we should just only ever do what they did instead of adding to it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, you're hitting it right here. Obviously, the whole, the environment is quite different to when our tupuna arrived here, or derived from Papatūānuku, as some say, and grew here, or came through the uira, or however, or were part of the kahui maunga. It's not the same. So, like anything, you take what was there before you, and then you've got to adapt. I mean, we see it in te reo Māori, you know, te reo Māori nowadays, different to 50 years ago even. We see it in all parts of how we are, all parts of our whakapapa even, within te ao toi Māori. What does rangi say? Traditional is contemporary, contemporary is traditional. You know, we've got to be confident, I guess, to merge the two, and then come up with, wow, this is what it is. This is what it is right now. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that if we don't, we get stuck with the little labels that get thrown our way. We don't have a relationship, and so we're stuck believing that the likes of Tonga Species is good for us, or we can't have the relationship with the whenua because someone else has to tell us how to and dictate to us. And how can we reconnect if we're not prepared to do that, if we're not prepared to adapt? And be learners again too is the other thing. It's actually okay not to know. It's okay to be learners again, because remember why we're here. We're actually here because all that land got cleared, stolen, cleared. We've got a long way to go to get to Ngā Ere from Waitara to the Maunga for me. Like there's a long stretch of grass. And so the connection is harder. We've got to put petrol in the car to get there, and our people aren't in the position that other people are. So the people that are living closer to the Maunga probably have a bit more coin in their back pocket too. So our opportunity to connect is a lot harder. So I think cutting ourselves some slack, saying this is why there is a knowledge loss, but actually trusting that there is opportunity for reconnection, simple as a mahi and pest control with TMP. That's not a plug for TMP, by the way. But you know, that is looking at things, or like you say, going into your backyard, seeing that you have 1,000 cuddle seeds, potting them up with the kids in lockdown, and then when they go to plant them out next year, their connection to those is so much, then way more important, because they have part of the journey all the way through. And that's something that's really important, is, you know, being invited into plantings and things like that. It doesn't do much for us for actually reconnecting and understanding those rākau. It's just like I think I said last week, it's like a one-night stand. We don't get to actually have that relationship and the connection of what did the kakano look like, where was it growing, what's it going to look like when it's a big rākau. We have none of that knowledge by just turning up for a one-off planting. And so by collecting up those rākau, sure, you're not going to get your planting done this year. You're going to take time to do it, But man, imagine the knowledge that's gathered along the way, and the kōrero and the wānanga and the kaitahi and all of those things of the potting up together and the collecting of the seed. You get the knowledge of what does the seed even look like, you know, like lots of those plantings that we're doing in riparian plantings or one-off plantings at our marae, lots of us don't even know what that rākau will look like as an adult, or what the kapana will look like, you know. They turn up and they're all about this height sort of thing, and no one's actually thinking, well, which one's going to grow into a huge canopy tree and which one's going to like being by the water. So taking things slowly and doing that learning or relearning is actually adding a lot to the kete for future too, in that respect. That is way off. Way off the
So, you know, if you had so you talked about take our time, create the relationship, grow the relationship. So take our time, grow the relationship, take our time, listen when you're out there, and understand the environment. Now, I think I made this comment when we were down at Ahikuku, and I said, you know, I can't wait to be a tupuna to see what it looks like in 100 years, where there is, you know, right now we could see right from the top to the sea. My thoughts is that, you know, once I'm a tupuna, I'll be looking down and all I'll see is a canopy. And how amazing is that going to be? So we do need to start thinking, like you've already referenced during our kōrero, not about us getting the immediate. I feel like we're always in this place where we want to tangibly be able to feel that success before our time is up, you know, and I'm finding myself saying to people, actually, this isn't even about us at all. It's not about me, you know, yourself. It's about what you're going to do. Probably may not even be for your own tamariki at this point in time. It's probably going to be more about your mokopuna and their kids. And so it's like this whole defragmentation of the brain, decolonization of the brain of instant gratification. You know, like I'm going to grow this right now, and I better see some sort of results at least in the next year. You know, so actually, I'm not going to grow it from a seed. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy it, and it's already a tree, and I'm going to plant it because I've done my bit, right? So, yeah, right, fine. Some people are going to do that. That's fine. That's what you're going to do. But wouldn't it be more important? Wouldn't it be more? Wouldn't the gratification actually come from taking it? From what's it called? Womb to tomb sort of kōrero, right, Kari?
And the other thing, the most really important thing is about the whakapapa. So it's that whakapapa in the people, like you say, you're doing it for the future, for your mokopuna, but also for the whenua, that you're choosing the rākau that are from there. They're going to be re-established there and reconstructed there. And it's the same as people. Like, you wouldn't go and get that tree that's already an adult, like you just said, that you don't really care where it's from as long as it looks the part. Yeah. Because when we're doing that, we have to also think that the things grow there because they provide the habitat for the manu that want to come back and live there, or the ngangara that live there, or so there's so much to it. Like, it's not choosing something because we like it and it's about us. It's actually so that relationship and the whakapapa, those rākau grow there because their whole makeup is built to grow there. It's been growing there for hundreds of years, so everything about it can handle that climate and is going to cope well there. So that's part of doing that from that tiny Tipu stage, opposed to doing it from, oh yeah, what's Big Jim's got on special or something, you know? Like, I love, you know, pūriri flowers. I think they're going to look beautiful there. It's like kao doesn't go there. And then the manu that will be coming they won't have the kai because you haven't planted the right thing, so therefore they're not going to come back. So, and as far as providing habitat, you have to make sure you're providing the right habitat for those ai. But that instant gratification is that's the world we live in, right? So it's kind of reminding ourselves why we're doing it. And it's the give, it's not the take part of it.
Mm. So true. Wow, Kare. He rawe ngā kōrero ko puta mai I tēnei haura me ki. And, you know, you're going, oh, no, we're going off. No, we're not going off track. We're going off. So e te whānau, koutou rā kua whakarongo mai ana, koutou rā kua mātaki mai ana, koinei pea ngā kōrero pū o Marie Gregory Hunt I tēnei wā. So we're looking at creating our relationship. Well, actually reclaiming our relationship. It's within us. It's very much like te reo Māori. We already have our reo. It's about how do we bring it back out of us. So the other thing is, without taiao e te whanau, I say this often, we will really have nothing. It is only up to us to do the best that we can to actually look after the things that we karakia about, we waiata about, we haka about these things, we poi, we do all of these wonderful things, our waha, our tinana me ki, about, you know, our whenua, our reo, our taiao, rangi nui, papa tua nuku, all of our atua, but it is going to take some serious work to actually put it into practice. So, you know, you might hear my favourite song from Maori, Whakato te kakano. Well, you can't really whakato a kakano if you don't know what a kakano looks like. He te whanau. And we're not talking metaphorically here. We're talking about real kakano, right? Do you hear that a lot though, Maori? You know, we're doing all of these things, but are we actually doing it?
Aye. And it's a little bit, it's a little tiny bit. And it might be just cuddle today. And tomorrow it might be taupata. And then, you know,
yeah,
that's how we go. Start small, but start.
And you, yes, but start. That's right. And you could be the best lettuce grower in your whānau, or the best kumara grower in your whānau, and that's all you got to grow, because that's your skill. You know, like me, I'm going for the easy stuff. Silver beet, can't kill it. Honest, in my mana, when we get back up to our whare, and what I've always grown in the past is what I know will survive under my stewardship, which is rhubarb and silver beet, and Mike's the king with riwai, and I can grow a good lettuce too, e te whanau. So I'm not trying to be everything. I'm just trying to be me and do the best that I can. And I take, and so people might be listening thinking, what sort of kaitiaki is that? You got to be able to do this and the other. Well, actually, no, I take my role as a kaitiaki real seriously. And I do trust the experience that I've had to kōrero about it too, because I'm only going to kōrero to what I know, and to what my experiences have been.
And you know what? I think the joy of that is that if we knew everything, we wouldn't need each other. And this is about a hapū and a iwi and whānau, and we need everyone. So we don't need to know everything, because everyone's got a piece of it. Right.
That's right. There you go, whānau. You heard it here first, maybe not first, but you heard it here. Auntie Te Aorangi and Auntie Marie gave you permission today to not have to know everything, e te whanau. You don't need to know how to grow everything, but like Marie says, e te iwi, we just need to start. And for some of us, it might be starting through our tamariki, and kei te pai tērā, it could be you're starting through your mokopuna. Whatever it is, we are the adults in this world, so we do have to take some responsibility. And just a quick another little plug is that We hear all the time that we're not in dire straits in regards to Papatūānuku and the state that we've got her in rangi nui. But actually, whānau, come on, te whānau. I'm going to leave Marie to give you the last little koho here and leave you all with some encouraging but straightforward kōrero. Tēnā koe. Kia hui.
Kia ora. I just remember to be kind to our jokes.
We're a team of 5 million.
No, I just trust yourselves. That's what I would say. Trust yourselves. We've got it, like you say, we've already got it in us, and the same values that we use for reo, whānau, tikanga, marae, it's the same with taiao. Just trust. That's the recipe. Follow it. You know, and be ready to learn, be open to learn. There's still things to hear from the ngā iwi.
Oh my gosh, now you just said something else and now I want to carry on talking, but no, ka waiho kiko rā e te whānau, engari, kaore roa, ka hoki mai anō tāua, maua ko Maori. We'll leave it here for now, but there will be more kōrero between Maori and I in the future. Nā reira, kei te mihi kātu ki koutou katoa, ko whai wā ki te mātaki, ki te Whakaronga rānei, ki tēnei o ngā pāpaho, ki koutou katoa, ki runga i Koniahi kōrero mai i te reo irirangi tēnei taonga o te maunga tito ia te korimako o Taranaki. Ka kite rā koutou.
Ka kite.